Welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. I am your host, Larry Leese. Today we're diving into the latest box office news and giving our review of the newest episode of Moon Knight. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex, for sponsoring this episode. Poddex are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or gamify their podcast. Simply shuffle up, ask a question, and let the content roll. Get yours today at poddex.com and use code Larry21 for 10% off your order. And now on to our first topic. Fantastic Beasts falls short of expectations, but wins Easter weekend at box office. This weekend's box office numbers have brought some good news and bad news for Warner Brothers. The new sequel, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, opened domestically with a haul of $43 million, enough to put it into the number one spot at the weekend's box office. As the film cost a hefty $200 million to produce, these numbers are well below what the studio had been anticipating, setting the new record for the lowest grossing premiere of any film in the Harry Potter franchise. When factoring in worldwide numbers, Fantastic Beasts 3 is up to $193.4 million, so the film is not a total dud. Even so, a premiere that sold fewer tickets than expected, coupled with lukewarm reviews, might convince Warner Brothers to pump the brakes on the Fantastic Beasts series. There had been preliminary plans to make at least 2 more films, but as this was dependent upon The Secrets of Dumbledore doing well, Fantastic Beasts could end up concluding as a trilogy. Reviews that were less than stellar did not help the film, at the box office, and it's possible that many filmgoers boycotting the movie for one reason and another also tarnished its theatrical run. There had been many of J.K. Rowling's critics who had sworn not to watch the film due to her involvement after she had made controversial comments about the transgender community. Meanwhile, many Johnny Depp fans protested the film when he was asked to resign from his role as Grindelwald. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 fell by 58% from its opening weekend to pull in $30 million. It opened with $71 million, almost $30 million more than Fantastic Beasts 3. The Bullock and Channing Tatum adventure in the Lost City is still hanging on with a $6.5 million haul. Rounding out the rest of the top 5 are the new action flick Everything Everywhere All at Once, which has garnered near perfect ratings at Rotten Tomatoes, followed by Mark Wahlberg's new film, Father Stu. Morbius and Ambulance, both movies that perform below studio expectations, follow in the next couple of spots. Meanwhile, Spider-Man No Way Home is still hovering in the top 10, now in the number 10 spot with another $200K to toss on the pile of profits. The film has managed to pull in more than $1.8 billion worldwide since premiering in December to become one of the highest grossing movies ever and the highest earner of the pandemic era. Batman was not too far behind and it's now still collecting more millions as well with another $3.8 million. As always, you can get more details about these numbers from the numbers at the-numbers.com. And now on to our review of Moon Knight, Episode 3. The third episode of Marvel's Moon Knight, The Friendly Type, winds up feeling like a puzzle-solving diversion for the most part. And that's a bit frustrating considering there are only 6 of these bad boys in total, and we're halfway through them by the end of it. But we do get to learn some key information about Mark Spector and Layla during the events that play out, so it's not a total loss. We begin by focusing on Layla, Mark's estranged wife, and Khonshu's preferred choice for a new Moon Knight avatar. Layla is getting ready to re-enter Egypt after a decade away. She briefly touches on what happened before she left. Her father died on an archaeological dig, but Layla has precious little information about what exactly happened on that fateful day. If you're a fan of the Moon Knight comics, this is probably the full confirmation you needed that Layla is the MCU's reshaped version of Marlene. You may also have some ideas of what happened to her father. Meanwhile, the Golden Scarab Compass leads Arthur Harrow to Ammit's tomb, and his followers begin their dig. He's aware that Mark is tracking him, but he doesn't really give a flying fig. Harrow is confident that the arrogant Khonshu will somehow mess it up, and sadly, he's not entirely wrong, is he? In the city, Mark fights some punks on a rooftop for morsels of information about Harrow's whereabouts, and we get a strong daylight look at how Oscar Isaac's Marvel Studios fight training has paid off. Pretty good. We also established that, although Mark can be a brutal mercenary, he often stops short of being deadly with his human combatants. I suspect this information will become very important later down the road. When Mark threatens one of the men with a knife to the throat, he sees Steven begging him to stop in its reflection. He then flips into Steven and leaves the scene with the men allowed to walk. Mark takes over again, fighting back Steven's incursion, and resumes his pursuit. They're naturally confused. "You just let us go, man," they complain. "That wasn't me," Mark replies before getting a nasty blow to the head. When he awakens, Mark is covered in blood and has killed some of the men at a remote location. He blames Steven, but Steven denies causing the bloodshed. And this time, we believe him. We don't get to meet the mysterious alt responsible for the carnage in this episode, but is it premature to assume that the missing Jake Lockley identity from the Moon Knight comics is already alive and kicking in the recesses of Mark Spector's mind? Mark thinks the other gods and their avatars should be summoned to take stock of Harrow's plan to raise Ammit. But Khonshu isn't too sure about the plan, mainly because they can't stand him, and they'll be eager to imprison him. Still, Khonshu brings about an eclipse to catch their attention, and Mark makes his case, which requires him to be possessed by Khonshu. The scene is one of the wildest that the MCU has ever dared give us, treading a truly wobbly line between funny and unsuitable when paired with the unsettling nature of Harrow's defense. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. The show is clearly not afraid to go for broke in pursuit of its vision, but it was frustrating to watch, not just because of its uneven tone or because its confrontation with Harrow in front of the gods should have been a slam dunk, but also because it was gaslight o'clock with Harrow using Mark's DID as a weapon. The whole scenario also kind of proved Harrow's point, that maybe some people should be taken out of the equation before they commit an atrocity, not after as the gods demand. And by some people, I mean his diabolical ass. Failing to get on the god's side, Mark is forced to find another way to move forwards. He reunites with Layla and pushes her away emotionally before they attempt to acquire a sarcophagus clue under the watchful eye of notable thief and Marvel villain Midnight Man. Things fall apart pretty quickly, I should say, and Layla and Mark end up battling Anton and his goons. It allows us to get a better picture of how badass both Mark and Layla can be, and therefore why Khonshu has become so keen on Layla being Mark's successor. Harrow also toys with exposing a big secret that Mark has been keeping from Layla, and I assume we'll get more clarity on that later from Mark himself, since it appears to be weighing on his soul quite heavily. Ultimately, it's Steven who becomes the key identity, helping to turn back time on the night sky to pinpoint the location of Ammit's tomb. Khonshu helps Steven complete the task, knowing he will be imprisoned in stone by the gods for doing so. After a pretty well-paced and character-focused episode last week, the friendly type was a step back. Now that we've gotten to know Steven, Mark comes across like a bit of a tool and is a little hard to root for. The Midnight Man fights was also pretty underwhelming, never really making enough of Anton's character so that he was anything more than an end-of-level boss that Mark and Layla had to beat to solve a silly map puzzle. How will Mark, Steven, and Layla fare in their quest without the protection of the Moon Knight? I'm looking forward to find out. Hopefully there'll be a bit more momentum in this week's episode. Let us know in the comments section below what you think of Moon Knight. Are you a fan of it? As always, give us a thumbs up if you like the videos. And finally, our Poddex segment. Today's question is, would you rather drive a creepy ice cream truck or the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile everywhere you go? I'm going to go with the Wienermobile because I feel like more people would call the cops on a creepy ice cream truck than the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Wienermobile. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, hit that bell icon to be notified of future videos. And if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. Your support helps the channel grow. We thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.